All right, thank you very much, Musbah Dan Wahab, for that backgrounder. We have guests with us here in the studios, and we have other guests who will also be joining us via Zoom. Let's welcome one more time the Honorable Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu. Honorable Minister, glad to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigerians.
Also here with us in the studios is another regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, former President of COREN, that's the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, and Chairman of the FCT Water Board, Engineer Kashim Ali. Engineer Ali, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, and via Zoom, we have a member of the House of Representatives. All right, he's okay. Now we have him. We're trying to establish whether the connection is right. So via Zoom, we have a member of the House of. Let's get a clear information on who is on the line now. Prof is on the line. Okay, and we have Professor of Environment and Law and former Vice Chancellor, Lagos State University, Professor Olarewaju Fabonhu, SAN. So good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. It's nice to be here, and good morning, Nigerians.
All right. Once we're able to get the Honourable Member of the House of Reps, we will introduce him, as my colleague Kieran was saying a moment ago. Let's begin with the Honourable Minister of Water Resources. We had a conversation on the Water Resources Bill sometime in the past. At that time, it was controversial in terms of the comments that were raised by not just some members of the House of Reps, but also other stakeholders across the country, or in some parts of the country. Some say it was a land grab attempt, others say it was a way of reintroducing Ruga by other means. Then, of course, things went quiet. Suddenly, again, the bill is back, and then, again, we're having all the controversies around the bill. What is the situation, and why is this so? Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you. When we introduced the bill after FEC approval, FERC Executive Council approval in 2016, it went through a public hearing in November 2017, and it was passed by the House of Representatives. Then it went to Senate for concurrence, and then some senators raised certain questions, most of them former governors anyway. And the Senate at that time, that's the 8th Senate, requested that a technical committee be formed to resolve those issues. Before they were resolved, we went into a 2019 election. And after the elections, of course, it was a transition, so the bill could not be passed at that time. And that was why, when the 9th Assembly came, we returned the bill to the House. At that point, of course, the antagonists were still there. And because of the rancor around it, we now decided to do further consultations. We went to speak. Most of the quarrel came from maybe some governors. And therefore, we took the matter to the Governors Forum, to the Nigerian Governors Forum. We addressed the Governors Forum. The governors asked questions. We answered the questions. And they still set up a committee made up of attorneys general of the states. They reviewed the bill and sent in their comments. On the basis of those comments, we now invited experts, led by Professor Fagbo, who is on screen, to look at the bill again, because we just felt that we didn't want to be seen to be pig-headed or arrogant. So let us address these concerns. What is the problem? And he looked at it with his team, and they reviewed everything, and then we now resubmitted it to the National Assembly. So currently, the bill is still before the House of Representatives again, and we hope that all the issues have been addressed. But you hear a lot of noise and arguments from outside, from people that sometimes I wonder what this is all about. They simply want to play politics with the bill. And this bill is something that is meant to reposition the water resource sector of the country. And I don't think it is right and in the interest of the country for them to be doing this. They should arm themselves with a clear knowledge of what the provisions of the bill are, rather than causing hysteria in the country.
All right, Honorable Minister, there are some specifics, in this matter. There are areas, raised by members of the House of Representatives, for instance, after the bill was first passed. Some raised concerns about the fact that the bill tends to make water one of the concurrent issues in the nation's administrative structure. That is to say that everything concerning water should be under the federal government and under the Federal Ministry of Water Resources. And that now it means that the Water Resources Ministry at the federal level will now take charge of the affairs of water issues in all the states of the Federation, which of course is the reason why some of the ex-governors who are in the Senate are kicking against that. What can you tell us more concerning some of these specific issues that I raised? Because there are issues that I raised. Can we get into those issues? And of course, why you are in support of what has been submitted to the House for passage?
Well, I think these arguments are misplaced. Again, I said people don't seem to have an understanding of this bill. The water, when we talk about water, some people are thinking of water supply only. Water is, we are talking of water resources, the resource. We are talking about rivers, transboundary waters. That is where the federal government comes in. And this matter is settled in the Constitution. It's already there in the Constitution. The rivers that cut across states are under the custodianship of the federal government. The Constitution of Nigeria is very clear about it. Schedule 64 of the Constitution, it is there. Then the Water Resources Act, the existing legislation, the Water Resources Act 2004, vests responsibility for custodianship of the rivers, interstate waters, on the federal government. But the federal government is not legislating or taking control of Kano, for instance. Under the old Kano State administration, the Abuja administration built 22 dams. These dams are there. They're not under the purview of the Federal Ministry of Water Resources. Out of the 22 dams, 3 are in Jigawa State today. So we're leaving about 8 or 4, maybe 18 now in Kano. All these dams, except for Tiga, Chalao Gorge, and until recently, Gary Dam, all the rest are controlled by Kano State government. Nobody has ever gone for the federal government to say that these dams belong to the federal government. And the issue of water supply, if you take water supply as an aspect, there is water supply, there is irrigation, there is hydropower. All these things are there. The issue of water supply is entirely the responsibility of states. That is why the federal government does not have a state water agency. So we are not, in fact, states have been coming to the federal government. Federal government has been investing a lot of money through interventions, spending billions of naira to provide water schemes to the states. And handing over, at any point when these projects were finished, they were always handed over back to the states. And under the water resources policy, the National Water Resources Policy, we have now resolved that federal government will intervene to a maximum of 30% for urban water schemes and 50% for rural water supply schemes. So it's support that we are providing. And we have never, at any time, at federal level, gone to say that we are going to take control of how you run your affairs. But what we are saying, as a federal government, we are also the ones that subscribe to international conventions and international agreements. For instance, the Sustainable Development Goals and the UN Water Convention that we are trying to join now. And the concept of integrated water resources management that has become an international issue. All countries of the world are required to adhere when it comes to water resources management to this concept of integrated water resources management. So as a nation, federal government is answerable to its international obligations. Now, if at state level, because of our federal nature, if at state level they are not measuring up to these obligations, it's not the federal government that is going to be running. I've been saying it, for instance, it's not the federal government that is going to provide water for you in your taps. It is state government responsibility. But if they are not doing that, we are the ones that go to report to the international community about the progress we are making in SDGs. And if we are not making that progress, the federal government has a responsibility to find out what is going on and to see how it can support the states to be able to meet these obligations. And this is one of the things that this bill is trying to answer. We create a wash fund because we have realized we didn't meet the Millennium Development Goals that ended in 2015. The way things are going, we are not likely to meet the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Countries are making strides, smaller countries are making strides, but we are not. And what we realize is that state governments are not investing enough to meet the obligations of providing potable water supply to the people. So what did we came with so many solutions. We started with PWASH, Partnership for Expanded Water Supply, Sanitation and Hygiene, which we launched in 2016. We now went on to do a national WASH action plan, Water Sanitation and Hygiene Action Plan, which was launched by the President in November 2018, and he now declared a state of emergency on water. All this to stimulate the states. We now introduce a new budget line to support states' urban water schemes. Recently, last week, Gombe State was the first to enjoy this. Federal government is supporting the Gombe regional water supply with 30% of the requirements, about 3.something billion. So we have been doing this, and then we now created this WASH fund, which we are also embedding into the water resources bill, because at the end of what we want is, instead of having a WASH fund, an act for the WASH fund, an act for river basins, an act for the Nigerian Hydrological Service Agency, we just want to put everything under one book and say this is Nigerian water law. And every other thing that we may add on in the future, we add it on. Okay. So there's this issue about federal government trying to take control is unfounded. In fact, this bill will devolve the powers of the minister as they exist under the National Water Resources, the existing National Water Resources Act. We're whittling the powers of the minister and democratizing the concept of water resource development to the people.
Now, as a follow-up, what, I mean, why the new bill in the first place? Because of course there's an established, Water Resources Act that is in existence. Is it that there are lacunas or there are areas that were not taken cognizance of initially when the act was being put together, or perhaps because of the new world that we find ourselves with the old technology and what have you, that we need to expand, the horizon of such acts?
Absolutely. The National Water Resources Act 2004 is a 40, maybe 30, 40-year act. The concept of integrated water resources management is a new thing. Integrated water resources management says whatever you're going to do to develop your water resources, you must balance the ecosystem. There is no land degradation. You do it in a sustainable manner. And you must give citizens the right to partake in this process. So this we are missing from the law. The process, when Nigeria adopted the concept of integrated water resources, it has been a a steady process. First thing was, review the laws, which started, I understand, 2006. And the first draft of this bill came out in 2008. By 2007, the Nigerian Hydrological Service Agency had been pulled out of the ministry. It was formerly Hydrology and Hydrogeology Department, to be made an agency. This is the agency that gives you the annual flood outlook every year. Today is responsible for monitoring, managing, forecasting, and all things, taking data on our water resources in the country. It was pulled out. Then the Nigerian Integrated Water Resources Management Commission was formed. And this is part of the process of democratizing the process of water supply, water resource development. By creating the commission in 2007, power it was formed on the basis of delegated powers of the minister, derived from the National Water Resources Act 2004. Now, that commission is still under the minister. And what this bill is trying to do is to make that commission independent, so that it does not report to the minister, it reports to the people. At the end of the day, the commission is already existing, so we're not creating anything new. It has a budget line and everything.
Who will appoint the members of the commission?
The commission will be made up of members from the 6 geopolitical zones nominated by the president to be confirmed by the Senate. The same way and manner we have reforms in the power sector. We have those reforms. So you are democratizing. And what that means is if there's any huge water resources program or project, the commission will assess it independently, independent of the minister and Ministry of Water Resources. They will call for town hall meetings. They have catchment management offices. They will call for town hall meetings. All stakeholders will be there. The environmental impact assessment report will be presented. The designs and everything will be presented, discussed, and a consensus reached by stakeholders before the project can move on.
Okay.
So
Honorable Minister,
that shouldn't be a bad thing.
yeah, Honorable Minister, well, let's pause you in the meantime. We know that you still have a lot to say, but earlier you did indicate that Professor Olarewaju Fagbonwu, a learned senior advocate of Nigeria, chaired a committee that reviewed the bill after the initial furore from stakeholders, including some members of the National Assembly. We've seen him appear on the screen. He's with us via Zoom. Professor Fagbo, once again, we're glad to have you with us on the program. Now, as briefly as you can summarize it, tell us the work that your committee did. What did you find in the initial, if you may, contentious bill, and what did you then recommend?
Thank you very much once again. And Honorable Minister, good morning. Good morning. When the Honorable Minister constituted the team of experts, what we did was to go through, and we did a thorough review of that, of the concerns that were raised by the Governors Forum, because we wanted to appreciate their concerns. And I will say clearly that, because you asked a question earlier, that what will inform the kind of issues that are coming up. I will say that the concerns that were raised by the Governors Forum, those concerns were actually legitimate, because for reasons of infelicity of language, we found out that, oh yes, there are some things in the act, that in the bill, that easily could lead to confusion. And that was why, when we were doing our review, we were guided by three critical things. The first one there for us was the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and the Honorable Minister made reference to it. We are guided strictly by item 64 of the exclusive legislative list. Part 1 of it is very clear. Water from such sources as may be declared by the National Assembly to be sources affecting more than one state. So you're talking of two different situations. You're talking of interstate waters. That is water crisscrossing state A, state B, state C, among others. And you are talking of intrastate waters. So we took cognizance of this, and this was a primary guiding thing for us in the review. Again, we took due cognizance of case law. There are quite a number of judicial decisions that we have in this country today that have espoused clearly the jurisdiction of states, the jurisdiction of the federal government. And we wanted to make sure that the bill will not conflict with any of these judicial decisions. Then a third thing that informed and guided us, international laws, particularly the Sustainable Development Goals, which the Honorable Minister also made allusions to. And I must say that the 158 provisions of that act, we ensured that all of these three things guided the way we were thinking. If I may just make a brief reference to Section 2.1 of that bill. Section 2.1 was very clear that the power of the federal government to control water resources is only in relation to interstate waters. That is water going from state A to state B to state C. And then Section 2.2 of the same bill was very clear in confirming the powers of the state government to control intrastate waters. That is water within the state. So we ensure that we, the entire 158 sections, we went through them provision by provision. So what I suspect is that some of those who have made comments about the revised bill may perhaps not have read that bill and might think that, oh, the old thing that was presented, which they had concerns about, is what they have just returned. That is not the case.
Okay, but perhaps as we make progress in the program, we will be able to also explain some other aspects of the bill. Now,
Kieran, if you don't mind, I just would like, since the Zoom connection to him is still,
okay, because
is still sharp, yes. But Professor Fagbo, thanks a lot for the background information that you have provided with respect to the work of your committee of experts that revised the earlier bill and then, of course, now presented your findings to the Honorable Minister of Water Resources. But did your committee, for instance, consider the arguments that were made in the past with regard to interstate control of water resources? Because some persons said that it's most unlikely that you'll find any river in this country that doesn't cover at least 2 or 3 states. A source of a river, it will flow. So it's difficult to have, according to them, a river, unless it's of course of no major economic value, that flows within a state, starts from a state, its source in a state, and then its mouth is also in one state. And that therefore, in the end, once the law gets into effect, it will cover virtually all the rivers and water resources in the country.
Thank you very much. That's a very salient point that you have raised. But we were guided strictly by the Constitution, because when you look at the Constitution, it is very clear the waters that will constitute intrastate waters and waters that will constitute interstate waters. So it is the Constitution that we are allowed to make a determinant of this. It is not for us to be subjective in making the choice of one water or the other river as to what will come in. We rely solely on what is stated in the Constitution when you look at the exclusive legislative list, and also when you look at Schedule 2, which identify different the different water bodies that we have. River Niger, River Benue, all of these rivers, what will constitute what. So that was the kind of thing that we took into cognizance, because we did not want a situation where we are the one making a choice of what goes where or what should be covered by what. But we ensure that in revising every provision of that bill, we make sure that we reiterated the constitutional separation of powers in terms of what we go for a state and what we go for the federal government. Another thing you will find out that we did, and which we clearly espoused in the commentaries to what we have done, even when you are talking of intrastate waters, when you are talking of interstate waters, that is water from state A to state B to state C. In looking at the way the National Council on Water Resources will operate, you see that it is inclusive. You find the Minister of Water Resources working together with the state commissioners of water resources coming together. And that was part of the things that the Honorable Minister mentioned when he spoke earlier, that the kind of thing we have done now is inclusive. It is not a situation where, even in relation to interstate waters, you don't see the federal government taking a decision alone. You see a situation where all critical stakeholders come together in that kind of body to discuss the issues and take decisions. So it is not something that is restricted to only what the federal government wants to do.
okay, back to the studio here, and let's get the view of our guest here, Kashimali, who have listened to the other 2 guests, and of course raised very pertinent, issues concerning our topic for discussion this morning. But what I'll ask you is to, I don't know whether you have perused through the bill in question, but if you have, what are those striking issues, that led to what so we may describe as a little controversy, in the bill that led to the passage of the bill by the House of Reps and returning of the bill again, and what have you. What are those salient issue or points, that some people have raised that led to the withdrawal of that passage, and what's your own view concerning that decision?
Okay, let me look at my view. Because those issues have been trashed and they have been dealt with. But even for me, at that stage, I had no problem with it. You know what? This thing is purely technical. Those of us who grew up in this country knew that around 60s, we had water even in villages. Tap water, you call it pipe-borne water. You have public taps, you carry a bucket and go and fetch. In the early 60s, we had it. What happened to them? You know why they were running that time? Because we just had independence. The colonialists just left. So what they left was still running. And we allowed them to run down because we ran them down. We just allowed them to keep running until they stopped working. No effort at all. And that it because of their own system. The system we had, the British system, is that these things are municipal water supply is for the municipal authorities. Even the state government shouldn't even be involved at the local level. But the state government took the resources, kept them to themselves, and pretended to have the capacity to maintain water supply system in all the areas, when they could not even provide for their state headquarters. Most states in Nigeria, how many states in Nigeria, the state capitals have water supply? They don't have, and they don't care. Now, what is happening is UN has brought our involvement in UN, really, not the UN, our involvement in UN has exposed us. When they're coming up with these SDGs, the target was that 663 million of all people in the world were the ones that had no access to water. I was discussing yesterday at the forum. I said, look, the number has increased because we have added to the number by not investing in water. And we have not invested because we don't have the proper framework for investment. You see, we have talked even in this place before, where you see some state governors going to commission boreholes in some communities. And there will be musicians, there will be people who will do, there will be entertainment. If I get the cost of the commissioning, it's at times more than the cost of a borehole. Because it's not really because they are wicked, I don't want to say they are wicked, but because they don't even understand what it takes. Water supply is an enterprise. And if you want to involve in it, you must look at it in a holistic form. Get the experts to advise you. So let me come to this. Now, the Minister of Water Resources has a lot of discretion under these scattered laws. The Water Resources Act, the National Water Resources Institute, Hydrological and Services Act, and everything. That is why, if you look at some states in Nigeria today, the federal government has constructed dams for them and water treatment plants. In some, they have not even constructed anything for them because it's discretional. But if we have this commission in place, it's a matter of equitable distribution of resources now. So when you are going to sit down, you say you want to construct a dam and a water treatment plant in Ekpoma. Kirian will say, what is coming to my own place? I'll ask the same. So that way you're able to come together to have, then you have also a picture of what is the water supply situation in the entire country. Because you now know where all the water supply systems are located. Even boreholes, you have the spatial information on all the boreholes. You have also irrigation points and the amount of water that is going to those enterprises. The federal government will have the repository of the information. but the controls are with the states. Because, for instance, it's the states that have the power to say you cannot do like in FCT. Now, FCT Water Board can say you cannot do a borehole in NTA. I know you people have boreholes here.
So we'll die of thirst.
We say we cannot have. We will say you cannot have borehole. We will shut down your borehole because we have a water line passing here. You connect to our water. It's not federal minister of water cannot do that. It's the federal minister also that will give you also license. If you say you want to do commercial water in any way, because there's a lot of creativity among Nigerians, you say, okay, I want to even supply somebody say, look, I want to supply a whole of a district in Abuja. It's the FCT that will give you the license to do that, not the Federal Ministry of Water Resources. So that is how it is in the states. So the states, this one, I think, for me, at the point I was trying to think, is it that the states are afraid of taking responsibilities? Because for once, it will be clear to the whole world that the problem is from state A or state B or state C, not the federal government of Nigeria. So the existing laws give more powers to the minister. It's the new law that devolves that power. So I thought the state governors should be happy with that. Because there's also the low-hanging fruit that is clear, what is called the wash fund. Most of our medical bills, health bills in Nigeria are on things that are avoidable. You know, I went way back about so many years ago, I did a study in Abuja here. We got reports every month from the hospitals, the kind of illness that people presented with. And we found that in Maitama, for instance, many children came down with gastroenteritis. So I wanted to find out why. So we went to check most of them were using boreholes. And all the houses that had boreholes, they're using contaminated water because we're discharging waste into the water bodies in Abuja. So we had to now go around and shut down all those boreholes and connected them to water. And those who could not be connected, like those on high ground, we had to give them tankers. That's how we saw that problem. We had another problem in Kuje, and we found out that there was a stream. There's a stream serving all of them. And people, that's where they do everything. And just down, a few meters down, that's where they also fetch their water. And they even go and they go. So we had to also go there and provide them a borehole. It was a technical solution. So what this bill says is to provide technical solution to our problem. And I wish that the governor should not only look at the law. At the state levels, we have the water boards. They have brilliant young people who are working there. They should also engage them to advise them properly. Because if we're going to look at the law, we're going to roll around this thing, because the laws can be interpreted anyhow. Even judges interpret laws differently. So don't talk about lawyers and attorney general. So if we look at that, then we can make some progress. So wash fund is critical. The states need the wash fund to bring down their health bills. They need also the framework for PPP, so that there can be a real investment. This is what this bill says. They are not looking at those things that are low-hanging fruit. They are looking at the laws that do not concern them.
Well, Engineer Kashimali, thank you very much there for your explanation. Just to say, I mean, you are an engineer, of course, and we've always had you on Good Morning Nigeria. So the law can be interpreted anyhow, but we say anyway. Not anyhow. That should be anyway, so not anyhow. I'd like to bring in again Professor Olarinwaju Fagbo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, because the Honorable Minister provided the explanation. So, but I would like you to also weigh in here and then give us the benefit of your committee's consideration of this issue. Namely, why the necessity for an omnibus piece of legislation that aggregates all relevant pre-existing laws regarding water and water resources? That's one. And tied to that is the argument that we've had in the past, which is again resonating at this time, that this bill, in a sense, focuses on ownership, control and management of water resources, which is now get to be vested in the federal government rather than in the states. That's one argument that has been made. Prof, let's hear your explanation.
Thank you very much. the practice globally now is what we call integrated water resources management. A situation where you respect the rights of all the stakeholders, but at the same time, you allow them to come together in such a way that they can always have continuous conversation in relation to use of water. Two things that are very sensitive to human beings: land, and the second is water. And you find out that when it comes to control and ownership of this, people are very, very sensitive to it because it impacts greatly on their livelihoods. And there's a point that Engineer Ali made when he was speaking in terms of the need to bring together the different scattered laws that we have. And that is what this law is trying to do. One of the things that people have read in commentary, they say that, oh, the customary rights that people have to use their water the way they want, that it has been taken away by this bill. Some people also went ahead to say in different write-ups that have appeared in publications that the powers that the states were exercising prior to now will be taken away from them. But if I may just make reference again to Section 3.1 of that law, that bill affirms, Section 3.1 of the bill affirms the right of state government to issue water licenses to water users in deserving circumstances. It is still their prerogative. Nobody is taking it away, and the law is not taking it away. Again, the bill recognizes the customary use of water, which the public already has access to, for whether you are looking at it in terms of household use, you are looking at it in terms of domestic livestock, you are looking at it in terms of subsistence fishing, you are looking at it in terms of personal irrigation. So all of these issues are there. So you find out that the powers and the rights as are existing have not in any way been tampered with. What we have only done is to give them clarity and make sure that we are bringing together all the stakeholders, which is what this bill is trying to do.
Okay, gentlemen, well said. I mean, your contributions are apt in respect to this topic. And Nigerians will be wondering, why all these efforts, being made in explaining laws or details of how water resources will be managed, or if, in fact, any other sector will be managed in this country, laws after laws, extant laws, and what have you. We seem to have too many of these laws, and, and when it comes to implementation, Nigerians will say, look, okay, after all the laws we're talking about, what is on ground for me to have a feel of? I liked how you started, Engineer Kashim, when you made reference to what the colonial masters left for us. And in fact, as a matter of fact, as a child, I saw water, I write my father's compound, tap water and what have you. But that has not happened. Enugu State, where I come from, is one of the oldest cities in Nigeria today. They don't have regular water supply there. We don't have it. Maybe
a young city.
I know Benin is also an ancient city. I agree with that. No doubt about that. Yeah, right. So, Honorable Minister, you are going to answer part of the question my colleague posed with respect to food control. Right. But the Prof also talked about integrated water resources management. Engineer Kashim said technical solution to the water problem. These are the things that are embedded in this bill. Right. Let's hear more from you.
Well, first of all, let me say to Nigerians, I don't claim to be a water resources expert, but I'm knowledgeable in water resources. And for me, to promote this is a professional responsibility, in addition to the fact that I'm Minister of Water Resources. I saw problems. We had a retreat in November 2015, brought in all the experts. We discussed the problems and the way forward for the water resources sector. And this bill, when it was drafted, I wasn't there. I wasn't even I was in politics, but I never imagined myself that I was going to be minister. It was at that retreat that I even discovered that there was a draft bill. And the stakeholders at that meeting all agreed that one of the ways to reposition the water resources sector is to have this bill in place. If other ministers didn't carry it, that's their problem. But I had a professional responsibility in addition to political responsibility to address the issues of the water resource sector. And that's just what we've been doing. So, having said that, I think for me, it's time for us to forget about all these arguments and let's allow the lawmakers to do their work. They will go through this bill line by line, address it. If there are any issues or sections of the bill that they are not interested in, they can be modified or tweaked or expunged from the bill. I think I've lost the other second comment that you wanted me to make. Sorry.
No, comment on the question that he raised earlier on. It has to do with the issue of that the bill tends to, give a full control of water management to
again, let us say this for the umpteenth time. To start with, the existing law does not even provide for that. And what we're saying is first and foremost, the basis of this bill is to consolidate all the existing laws. And Professor has rightly, confirmed that there is no change as far as the constitutional provisions are concerned. So in fact, what is happening to this bill is that some of the provisions that give federal government or the Minister of Water Resources a lot of control are being devolved. Those powers are being whittled. I keep telling people that, look, I am minister on the basis of the Water Resources Act 2004. I have enormous responsibilities and powers vested in me as Minister of Waters under the Act. But I'm here championing a process that will whittle those powers, take these powers away from me as minister and hand it over to the people, to the states and to the people. So all these arguments are unfounded. Right from day one, the arguments were not there. That was why we're saying people that were criticizing this bill had not read it. Because those provisions, if you go to the Water Resources Act 2004, the provisions are there. But like I said, the powers of the minister under the Act are even more than what we're trying to provide in the bill. So there is no issue about control or federal government taking over control. In fact, we have been complaining that at federal level we are taking over, we are being made to surreptitiously do the work of the state government. We have invested billions of naira at federal level on water schemes. When I came into office, 116 ongoing projects. They are not in Abuja. There wasn't a single intervention in the federal territory. All these 116 interventions are in states for irrigation, for water supply, 43 water supply projects. We have been able to complete many. The first one we feel was Central Ogbia. We are not trained or we are not mandated. We were vested with the responsibility at federal level of running water schemes. So when we even do this project, we go to the extent we do dams, then sometimes we do treatment plants, we do a whole package that we're not even supposed to be doing. And when we have done that, the ones that we have completed, we hand over to the states for them to run and go and see what is happening to them today.
But Honorable Minister, yes, hand over to the states for them to run. In this bill, is there any provision for a working synergy between the federal government and state governments vis-a-vis, the possibility of achieving because if you pass on to the state and the state could not articulate, people cannot get water resources will be scarce in the state. The federal government policy would have been in vain if there's no synergy.
Absolutely. We are losing investment. That's what we are saying. We are losing the investment. Central Ogbia water supply for 6 billion naira. We finished a Zobe water supply. It was in Kazina, has been going on since 1992. We're able to finish it. We're investing, federal government is putting money in water supply, in Zugero, Wushishi water supply. We did the the Owena Dam, built a brand new water treatment plant that has been lying for more than 10 years now for the state to do the treatment and the distribution. And our hands are tied because we cannot go and do it. We can't just invade the state and go and do the schemes for them. Most of the schemes that we have done at federal level, where you go back, they are not being run by the states properly. We just launched the Watchdog report. Less than 40% of existing municipal water supply schemes in this country are running at full capacity. So the states have not been invested. So our answer is not to go and say we are going to take over the water board. We can't. Constitutionally, we can't. Rather, we now created avenues through programs and now through this legislation by bringing in the wash fund and also adding it to the bill so that we can still continue to support the states. I mentioned it. I said we launched the P-Wash program. The president declared the state of emergency on wash and launched a new national wash action plan that clearly stated the responsibilities of federal government and the responsibility of state government. And this wash action plan was not prepared by the federal government alone. It was a team that comprised people from my ministry, development partners, and state governments. So it was a joint effort. We created that. And through that wash fund, through the wash action plan, we were able to develop the wash fund. And then we created a new budget line because we realized at federal level we're becoming concerned that we invest money so much and at the end of the day, these people still don't get the water. Why should people be asking me if there's no water in Central Ogbia after we spent 6 billion naira? Because we cannot go and employ and run the scheme. It is for the state government to do that. If they are not doing that, that is the problem. And we are now saying in this bill, let's do something. So one of the things, ironical things about all these arguments for me, and what's really amazing to me, is that every day people come and Nigerians who complain that there's no water, what is happening, nothing is happening. They don't even understand that as far as delivery of water supply is concerned, it's something that has to do with states. They come to the federal government. Every day you see different institutions, different state governments, everybody coming, even schools, even rural communities will write to the Minister of Water Resources that they will come and do a borehole in my community. That is not our responsibility. But what our responsibility is to engage the states and support them so that they will be able to do what they need to do. And that is what it's all about.
Okay, Honorable Minister and Prof. and Engineer Kashim Ali, we're going to take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
We are the dynamic global energy company of choice, steering the course of Nigeria's biggest export industry. With years of commitment, delivering greater value and improving lives, NNPC is transformed to better meet your everyday energy needs and retain the position as the largest contributor to the Nigerian economy, generating clean, sustainable energy with integrity, excellence, and creating value for all stakeholders. We are NNPC Limited.
Energy for today, energy for tomorrow, energy for tomorrow. Come on, let's go.
The 157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportations, kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Every morning is an opportunity to take your hustle to the next level. Every morning is one day closer to your ambition. So, make every morning count. Come after cup, morning after morning. Start strong, finish strong. Nescafe.
The digital switchover project, which is commonly referred to as DSO, which entails television channels switching from analog to digital broadcasting, is one of the biggest projects embarked upon by this administration. Branded as free TV, offers its viewers about 60 digital channels, including sports, music, movies, and news. The federal government has licensed about 23 set-top box manufacturers. 7 of them have started production, employing several thousands of people. We've made it now compulsory for all stations in Nigeria to only broadcast productions made in Nigeria for products which are produced in Nigeria.
Lalo, Nigeria are the 9th champions in this competition.
The 12th edition of the Africa Women's Cup of Nations is here with 12 teams including reigning champions and 9-time winners, Super Falcons of Nigeria, all in contention from July 2 to 23 in Rabat, Morocco. You can catch all the actions live on the NTA network service and NTA Sports 24, channel 270 on StarTimes, 434 on StarSat and 731 on Free TV. Come, join us to promote another championship run by the Super Falcons. For your advert placement, please call Hawa on 0803 312 1022. Africa Women's Cup of Nations, Rabat 2022. Game on!
Right, you're welcome back, and still Good Morning Nigeria, the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're on the home stretch now. Let's return to Professor Olarewaju Fagbohun, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Prof, well, again, we know that when we raise matters of law and ultimately of the Constitution, the politics of our federalism also creeps in. Now, is there a sense in which the idea of an integrated water resources management approach is in tension with advocates of true federalism? Could that also explain why we are having the opposition to the bill, even by persons who may not have read the clauses of the bill?
Thank you very much. Your summation of it, that the challenges we've had at different times in terms of federalism, the issues we've had in terms of tensions of the way states and federal government exercise their powers under the Constitution, which has resulted in litigation on a number of occasions. These are some of the things that probably informed the kind of opposition that we are facing at the moment. But if I want to use an example, one of the things that we've been talking about in this great country of ours is the fact that we don't have data to enable us plan, to enable us coordinate our activities. For instance, when you're talking about data in relation to hydrometeorological and hydrological and other monitoring networks, you find a situation where we are not able to come up with clear data. For instance, if you talk about the number of boreholes that we have in this country today, we don't know. There are boreholes in some states that may eventually threaten such states because nobody has details of what is going on. But the kind of thing that an integrated water management system will allow is that when you all come together, you are able to share information. So this is the kind of thing that this bill will achieve. Everybody comes together to the table. Nobody has lost the powers that they have been using to manage water resources in their states. Also, the central government, the federal government is also able to see what is happening in relation to interstate waters. So at the end of the day, an integrated water system management approach allows for effective coordination. People are able to work in harmony while continuing to respect their powers and their different terrains.
Okay, you said that people will be prepared to work in harmony. Well, fine. We've had acts that have been in existence over the years, and people did not work in harmony with the existence of the act. So, what, of course, you know, I mean, what will tell Nigerians that, well, if this bill is passed, that people are going to work in harmony, and so on. We are beginning to have issues with people who are in very critical leadership positions that are not really making use of such positions for the betterment of society. And Engineer Kashim, you talked about PPP. Now, how would the private sector play a role in this? Is there any provision in the bill that provided for private sector participation in the integrated management of water resources in Nigeria?
Now we have an organized way of private sector participating. You know what we have now, like I told you, the existing acts give a lot of discretion to the minister. Example, dangerous example is, if a minister decides to be cantankerous and somebody comes from KB today and say they want to do a dam on River Niger, without consulting any state, he can decide to say, okay, it makes sense, let's do it. And if somebody comes wants to do also around Yola, that he wants to do also on River Benue, they can do it. And for that period, do you know the confluence will cease to exist? The delta will cease to exist as it is. Those are possibilities under this present act. But when you harmonize integrated water resources management, it cannot happen. Because you come to that decision, there has to be every stakeholder coming and say, this is the impact of this suggestion by a stakeholder on my own area. And then you come up to a common position. Then coming to price, you know, for now, do you know there are people discharging dangerous waste into our water bodies right now? Especially some of these foreigners who manufacture all kinds of things around, in the rural areas even. But there are no adequate measures for containing them. It's just the community leader that will approach them, maybe at the instance of the members of the community, and then they will talk to them, and that is it. But if we have this system, you can now report, and there are penalties. In fact, the penalty for discharging waste in water body is such that will close down your company. You go and sell all your equipment, and you still not finish paying, and you could still go to jail. Those are the things. So pollution is going to be, but coming to specifically your question, people now, you know, some people, they take our water, treat it, sell it, make money, and feel good. Some use tankers also to even sell the water without regulation. The regulation is not coming from the federal government. If you are bottling water, for instance, in Kogi, it is to the Kogi state government that will give you license and deal with you. If you are doing also in Benue, it's the same thing. It's not the federal government. But for now, it's free for all, and the discretions are involved. So we are saying, look, let's harmonize this. Like I said earlier, I have a feeling that some people who are thinking ahead, they don't want to be controlled. Just like the PIA. PIA is for the same thing. We are saying we should empower the owners of the Commonwealth. But some people were having issues. You want to put power in the hand of one person. Power should be devolved. This is what this one seeks to do. And we should support it, really.
Okay. If I may just add, also relating to the private sector involvement. You don't get private sector involvement when you don't have a strong regulator, an independent regulator. So the fact that we want to make the International Integrated Water Resources Management Commission independent will now give confidence to investors to come and invest in water supply, because clearly state governments who are responsible, for instance, when it comes to matters of water, even in irrigation and hydropower, we are looking for private investors, not to talk of water supply. But the water supply delivery has failed. State governments and state water agencies cannot deliver. And what we are trying to do is want to see how private sector can play a role. They are better at managing and doing cost recovery. We're not saying we're privatizing water. So let me make that very, very clear. But what we're saying, there are so many things along the supply chain or the value chain that private sector people can be involved, whether in water supply delivery or in hydropower or even in irrigation.
How do you guarantee the independence and ultimately the efficiency of a commission for a commonwealth such as water? Because some persons have also raised concerns that, yes, the president has tremendous powers under our laws. The president will appoint persons from the 6 geopolitical zones. If it turns out that a president, because it's not a law for now, it will be a law of going forward. If a president decides to appoint only persons from his political party, what do you do? If there's no regard to competence.
Kingsley, this applies to every law in the country. The law is not the problem, it's the operators of the law. If that happens, there are still checks and balances, because what this bill is saying is that there are catchment management committees. They can still make it not happen. I'll give you a typical example. Even with the Nigerian Integrated Water Resource Management Commission as it is now, which was established in 2007, there is a project that is badly needed and that may be beneficial to people of Yobe State, the Kafin Zaki Dam. It was started in Shagari, under Shagari administration. During Babangida administration, there was an attempt to revisit it. Till today, that project has not seen the light of day because the people of Yobe State said no over their dead body. And there is a president, yes, and there is a minister. I'm the minister. I would love, from an engineering point of view, from a development point of view, I'm comfortable. I will be very comfortable to say, okay, let's go and do this project. But I cannot, because there has been strong opposition from the people of Yobe State. So the system is working. Every law is operated by man. Of course, some people will try to abuse the law, but there are systems there to check the law. So you cannot say on the basis of assumption that we cannot have these laws in place. There is no society that will exist without some form of regulation. Every aspect of your life has to have some form of regulation. If you don't have that regulation, you are talking of anarchy.
Tell us what the implication of this bill, when it becomes law, what implication it will have on the existing river basin development authorities. Because the view is also abroad that, in a sense, a number of these river basin development authorities have drifted considerably from their initial conception in the 1970s, and therefore they have either become dysfunctional or have become a drain pipe. So how does this bill seek to either revitalize or reposition the river basin development authorities? Is there any connection?
Well, of course, we are already many steps ahead. In 2016 February, as part of the roadmap to reposition the water resource sector, after the retreat in November 2016, I set up a committee on revitalization of the river basins. They came up with the recommendations, and we'll be implementing these recommendations. As I'm talking to you now, 4 river basins are under a pilot project of commercialization, partial commercialization, so that they can stand on their own. And that is the ultimate, that was what they were designed for. Yes, I agree, along the way, the whole process was derailed. They became implemented. In fact, initially, river basins were the ones responsible for construction of most of the dams in this country. I'm still surprised when I came into office to discover that all that had come back to the ministry, because they're the ones that are supposed to be the implementing agencies of the ministry. So our job since 2016 has been to empower, to reposition the river basins. And therefore, I'm not sure about the specific, but I know for sure that there is a new organogram. We've introduced new departments, like we have restored agriculture extension services. We have an executive director responsible for agriculture and commercial services now under the organogram of the river basins. So not much change from what it is, but those are the laws that will say we just want to bring them under an omnibus statute. But obviously, as part of our program, we've been making a lot of efforts to revitalize the river basins. I've given them 2 key performance indicators. Every year, the river basins must come and tell me how many hectares of irrigation have they increased into the stock. That is one. Number two, how much they have to have a monitoring system that tells them how much of crops, they have to quantify the crops that are being cultivated, that they produce every year from the river basin. All these things were not there before. We have made them to go back and take stock of all their assets and make sure that they have they have to go to the states now to get the lands that they own. We always have to go back to the state government to get the statutory rights of occupancy.
Honorable Minister, just one question that may actually sound as if I'm taking us back, to what we have already analyzed. But I want to because this is just coming from the text from my producer on the issue of, you said that the bill, is going to devolve the power of the Honorable Minister of Power Resources. But let me just read this to you as a cap-up, to this your own contribution this morning. That the bill also expects the minister to investigate, manage, monitor, and protect water resources, as well as oversee regional cooperation, and of course, allocation, use, and supply of water. If these powers or these are vested on the minister, for instance, does it really appear to be a devolution of power, or is it a wrong perception to what the bill has?
Look, you see, people have been taking sections out of context. You have to read it in relation to other things. When we go outside this country, I represent Nigeria. We're sharing River Niger with 8 other countries. We're sharing Lake Chad with 3 or 4 other countries. Certainly, things like that, where as a country, the minister will be the one to represent. But I think Professor Fagbo has made the point. We already have what we call the National Council on Water Resources, which meets every year. The minister is the chairman, and the state commissioners that are responsible for water resources are members. And every year we sit down, we take decisions about things that affect state. And we've made the point that the minister's powers only, relate to, or the federal government responsibility only relates to interstate waters. Not waters that are, so what you are quoting must be in relation to interstate waters, not waters that are in the state. But at the end of the day, the minister cannot even, yes, if you say this, that means there are other aspects within that bill, which I said that maybe they have not been taken into context, like the National Council of Water Resources, under which the minister can operate.
Okay, well, we of course know that this is an ongoing interaction. The bill, of course, it's before the National Assembly, and it is for the members to consider with inputs from stakeholders who are not members of the National Assembly and therefore do not have a voting right. Kirian, we cannot reopen this aspect, but it's more of a public communication challenge. And I'm sure the Honourable Minister himself is apprised of this. If, as has been said, there's a misconstruction of ownership and control of water resources under the bill, there is a perception that it harks back to the provision you already have in the Constitution that vests ownership of mineral resources beneath the soil in the federal government. And I'm sure you must have heard that argument that, oh, this is another way again of saying, look, in addition to mineral rights that are already vested in the federal government, they now want to take our water. As I said, that's a public communication challenge, and it's a matter that the lawmakers themselves will have to confront. On that note, we'd like to thank all our 3 guests who've been with us this morning. Very interesting conversation. Engineer Kashim Ali was telling us about water availability in the 1960s. Up in Edo State, for instance, old Bendel, it got up to the 1980s. And by the 90s, before 1999, one military administration bought alum that could have lasted for 20, 30 years, but no public water supply. Kashim Ali, Chairman, FCT Water Board, thanks a lot for being our guest this morning.
Thank you very much.
Via Zoom, we were joined by Professor Olarewaju Fagbohun, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, former Vice Chancellor, Lagos State University, and Professor of Environmental Law. Delight having you on Good Morning Nigeria today. Your Zoom was superb.
Thank you very much.
All through.
Thank you, Nigerians.
Yeah, thanks a lot for being with us. And here in the studios also, Deep appreciation to the Honorable Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu. Thank you very much for being part of our discussion this morning. So that does it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Join us again tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning for another episode of your program. I'm Kingsley Osadolo saying have a nice day.
And I'm Kirian Umayo. See you again tomorrow.